one of the most interesting things that came during the trial was that Jennifer Crumbley said that she wouldn't have changed anything. And then she later clarified that meant because she didn't have, the benefit of hindsight to change things.
While your son was hearing voices and asking for help, I was helping Madison pick out her senior classes. While you were purchasing a gun for your son and leaving it unlocked, I was helping her finish her college essays. While you dropped him off at school and upset that he was failing class, I texted Madison, drive safe, it's slick outside, have a good day. You say you wouldn't do anything different. Well, that really says on what type of parents you are, because there's a lot of things I would do different. But the one thing I would have wanted to be different was to take that bullet that day so she could continue to live the life she deserved.
But please know that I am truly very sorry. I am sorry for your loss as a result of what my son did. I cannot express how much I wish that I had known what was going on with him or what was going to happen. Because I absolutely would have done a lot of things differently.
Well, joining me now is Andrea Blanco, a reporter for The Times in the US who's covering the story. Good evening, Andrea. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just set out some of the facts, some of what the court's been hearing about the responsibility of Jennifer and James Crumbley, parents of Ethan, and the fact that they did not exert or meet their responsibility as parents.
Yeah, so one of the strongest pieces of evidence that the prosecution had was the fact that the gun was purchased by Ethan's father, James Crumbley. And I think the state successfully argued that the Crumbleys largely ignored their son's needs, his mental health struggles, and instead of tending to those needs, they decided to buy him a gun. The prosecution also managed to lay out all the red flags that the Crumbleys ignored before this tragedy. And, the defense attorneys had said that the gun was locked, but last year during his sentencing, Ethan said that that was not the case, that the gun was easily accessible to him. And I think another important piece of evidence was that on the day of the shooting, the Crumbleys were actually called to the school because a teacher had spotted Ethan drawing a gun on his notebook. And they got there, they were advised to take him home, but they didn't. And not only that, but they failed to check his backpack and they failed to tell school's officials that they had purchased a gun for him.
Yeah, and look, he killed 4 students with the semi-automatic handgun. Just to take us through what actually happened on that day in 2021.
Yeah, so after his parents left the school, Ethan returned to classes and then he opened fire on these 4 students. He also injured 7 others, including 1 teacher.
Yeah, look, there are, several accounts of how his parents ignored his pleas for help. He repeatedly asked them for help handling his mental health and showed signs of depression and mental illness, the court was told. In texts he sent to his parents, for example, he exhibited growing paranoia and complained multiple times of seeing ghosts or demons in their home. He said, I actually asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday. This is a text that he sent to a friend in April 2021. So I asked my dad to take me to the doctor yesterday, but he just gave me some pills and told me to suck it up. My mum laughed when I told her. And this is a groundbreaking case, isn't it, Andrea? Because it is the first time that parents have been convicted in the United States in connection with a mass school shooting.
So you're absolutely right. It's a first of its kind case. Like you mentioned before, the Crumblies are the first parent to be both criminally charged and convicted for their role in their child's school shooting. And this could absolutely set a precedent for future cases. And it's hard to tell how, but one always hopes that a tragedy of this magnitude never occurs again. But I think this case has definitely sent a message, and it's going to change the way we think about school shootings and who bears responsibility for them. And there could be implications not only for parents, but anybody who aids or fails to report seeing suspicious behavior before a mass shooting of this kind.
Yeah, it does highlight how the splinter effect, what could lead a child to commit a school shooting. How have James and Jennifer Crumbley, the parents of Ethan, how have they reacted during all of this case playing out and in their sentencing today? What has been their approach to this?
Well, it seemed like today they showed some remorse. We heard from James Crumley for the first time. He did not take the stand during his trial. He told the parents of the victims that he had cried over their loss more times than he could count. But that he also understood if the victims did not believe the way he felt about things. I think, but he also asked for a fair and just sentencing, which of course may not be the same that, the parents were hoping.
So 10 to 15 years in prison is the sentencing.
Yes.
And they can presumably serve some of that on parole. What has been the reaction in America to this story? I mean, it just seems like such kind of awful failings by the parents. But there is, I suppose, some of this comes down to what should have been their responsibility. How do you calculate responsibility? It is problematic in some ways. But how have commentators been reacting to this over in America?
Yeah. And I think, one of the most interesting things that came during the trial was that Jennifer Crumley said that she wouldn't have changed anything. And then she later clarified that meant because she didn't have, the benefit of hindsight to change things. But I think it was pretty obvious that these parents had several chances to intervene to get help for their child and that they failed to do so, and the outrage over that and over the consequences that had have been pretty evident.
Well, look, thank you so much for speaking to us. 10 to 15 years in prison. The first parents convicted in the US in connection with a mass school shooting. The parents of Ethan Crumbley, who was 15 when he murdered 4 classmates in Michigan in 2021, have been sentenced today. It's a fascinating case, and I'm sure it will lead to others as well. Andrea Blanco has been covering the story for the Times in the US. Good to speak to you, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you so much.